I had a lot of work to do in other areas of my business after the winter holidays, so I actually didn't get going in January, and this is the 1st of February. I finished off with a nice job, just the top and bottom parts of a support that I'm building for the front legs of the roll cage. So I'm going to have to weld in some steel and box this off, but the first thing I want to put a retained bolt up through this. I think the last time I did one of these I put nuts down there, but of course if you're going to weld the nuts in, they're going to melt the retainer on them. So I think it's better to put in the bolts here. I think there's enough play in the cage to slot it down, but also that means it'll be uniform all the way along, because I want the least amount of metal sticking down through the floor. We'll just have the bolt heads underneath, they'll all be coming up, and that'll allow, at a glance, you'll be able to look into the car. You'll see enough threads are exposed on the top of the bolts and know that all of the nuts are tight and everything, nothing has worked loose. So get my bolt, have to hold it in tightly so that I can weld it in place, and I'll also do a weld underneath along here, since I have access to that, and that will just make everything all the stronger. Did that nice and tight so you can't even get the ring spanner on it. So these are out to the outside as much as possible.
I fitted both of them up tight, just where I want them, and then welded the heads to the plate underneath. I also took this opportunity to weld the underside of the plate to the sill, so it actually held in two places. Loosen them off then, and I could use those nuts on the other side, where I repeated the exact same process. The nylock on these nuts will melt, so I won't be using them again. I will be using all new nuts on everything throughout the cage and all the fittings, so that they properly lock. I decided it was a good idea to trial fit, because it would be easy enough to reverse the work that I've done already. So anyway, this confirmed that I will be able to get the cage in on over those bolts. A bit of CAD now, cardboard aided design. So I actually use paper, because it's even more accurate when you fold it. Taped this sheet on at the top to kind of keep the position, and then just using a marker, because none of it's square. The floor rises up, it's quite complex. So, but I'm just using the set square to get the right point at the floor where the panel should meet. Now, just putting a bit of cardboard underneath it to hold it, so I could draw a line straight instead of freehand in the air. So just trim it now, and then kind of fold the edge so I get the line where I want it to meet the lower plate. Took that back to my sheet of steel and just transfer that shape onto it with the marker running along the edge of the paper. Cut that out with a thin cutting disc. Handy thing with the grinder, you can go into the middle of the plate. Snap that off by hand and trial fit it. bad. I'm really looking forward to seeing all this in place. I did the same at the other side, and would you believe it? I mean, I know people make things work on film, but this was ridiculous. I think it's the third flip. I realised I wouldn't even have to cut the sides. I just had to cut one line across the inside. Sometimes things just work out. Just give the welds a bit of a scrub. They're pretty clean, as I'm using relatively fresh metal. So that's my weld through primer, just to prevent rust on the bare metal. And I'll leave that to dry for a couple of hours. Doing all the areas I won't be able to get at again later. Okay, now I'm putting 2 nuts onto the studs just to protect them when I'm welding in these plates, because the spatter could go onto the threads and ruin them. And I'm stuck with these bolts now in place. Putting in a little weld behind the plate. It's held there with an angled magnet, and this just keeps it in position. A couple of tacks and holding it in square with a lever. I'll do a continuous weld next. That was the top of the plate to the vertical side, and now I'm doing the lower plate that's on the floor to the vertical side. Same job on the other side. That's the top, and now I'm doing the bottom. Okay, a little bit more CAD to do the side plates. I could rub it and get quite a good impression of the sides of the sharp steel, but I still use the marker to emphasize it. So I'd have 4 of those to make, and I transferred them onto the steel as economically as possible. I laid them out on the floor with the backs facing up, so I can put a bit of weld through primer on them, and also inside the box on the welds I've just made. Again, I'll leave that for a couple hours to dry, and then I can weld in these side plates. The pressure's on because these are going to be very visible, and I want my co-driver to feel secure in the car. I started using a torch for a bit of extra light when I'm welding, and it's interesting how you kind of position that to light edges so that you can see where you're welding. Trying to go as fast as the drip. This is my side, so I can probably hide this with my ankle. Can remove the nuts now from the bolts that protected the threads, and there was quite a bit of spatter on the outside, so that was worth doing. I'll give it a spray of zinc primer. I've put quite a lot of thought into how I would construct these, so I'm very happy with the way they've turned out. They feel solid.